And I'm going to turn it over to Satish. Thank you for being here.
Morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today? It's Friday. Yes, exactly. Do they have a clicker or something?
In the drawer. The clicker.
Okay. All right. And I'll.
Do you want me to?
I'll do this. I'll do this. Can I just? Okay. I think this is working. Perfect. I said good morning. Anyway, for those who don't know me, my name is Satish Patisapu. I am the CIO at Department of Education. Been in that role for a lot of months. Enjoying it. Today, first of all, apologize. I could not make it last time. I had a conflicting conference or something where I couldn't avoid that, or else I would have loved to come stay in Phoenix instead of going somewhere else. I have a small agenda that I'm going to go through it. This is compiled based on some of the questions that were asked last time during ASCUS, and also any pain point that anyone is having. I'll try to address as quickly and as as much as I can explain around it. Okay. My agenda goes like this. Looks like there has been an Integ 15 issue that has been going back and forth, and I want to address that. My team Andrew is here with me. There are some updates from last meeting that he brought over, and stuff that was discussed around that time frame, which I'm going to talk a little bit. And what are the changes or stuff that we are working on for the rest of the fiscal year? That is something that I'm going to go over at a very high level. And I know that people are eager to know about the CIS program and what is future and whatnot. I'll talk about that. And then we are in the legislative session. So what is going on in that area and what we have been thinking and planning about it is what I'll talk. That said, one of the most important things that I want to allude to is it is very, very important for us to receive feedback from you, because what we do is directly impacting you, and definitely we want to take feedback so that our lives are better going forward, and together we can make the product better. Okay. Oh, I love this. This is the most difficult thing for me. I can't stand like this and talk. I mean, I have to move, and also without PowerPoint, I can't talk. This is a problem with IT. They actually recently they made me speak at a meeting without a PowerPoint. And you should have watched it. I rushed through it like that because I don't know what was going on, and looking at piece of paper, and I was getting prompts from front row saying, "Okay, you forgot that, you forgot this." So anyway, moving on. Feel free to interrupt me, ask me questions. We'll take if I don't have an answer readily available, we will definitely take that, and we'll choose the best form of communication. If you guys want an email or maybe if it takes longer time to resolve the issue or implementation time, we'll bring it back to the same format and talk about it. That said, Intake 15. One thing that everybody knows that 915 is up and is live. Has that been communicated? I think it was, right? No? Okay. All right. Is School Finance here? They will be. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I hope I'm not stealing their thunder. Oh, okay. Yeah, please. Okay. We're all together in this. Okay. Maybe clap a bit. 915 went into production not this Wednesday, with January 31st. The night, I don't know how much information I should repeat. Probably you all know this. Every night we run this integrity and aggregation, like which is the old aggregation, which is called straightforward ADM calculation. And then the following day, when you guys go to work like we do, and you will see this intake 15 and other reports to verify what you have submitted is correct or not. That's the whole. That's the purpose of these reports that we are building. It's all based on feedback that we have received, right? That said, I will try to keep it as non-technical as possible, but you will see some tables and stuff like that. I'd want to be as transparent as possible without being too technical. That said, when it went live, to accommodate 915 process, there is a small technical change that had to be made in our system that resulted in false reporting on intake 15. There is no impact to anybody's ADM. There is no impact to processing and whatnot. All you are seeing as an issue on intake 15 is a report rendering problem. Okay, so why am I speaking a lot about this? Like what the purpose of intake 15? Let's say you submitted a student at a school, and there was, for whatever reason, the nightly process ran, and it said integrity failed for such and such reason. I'll get into details about what that such and such reason. Right now, I don't think you have the very specific reason. But by looking at that, you know, okay, there is a mistake or there is a problem with that information that was submitted, and your expectation is you make a change to that student data in your student information system. Nightly process picks up, and your expectation is that if you followed the right instruction, it should pass. But on 31st, it did not. That is the impression. You got a pass and a fail, 2 records are showing. The reason why this happened is because of a change that was made in our processing table, but a subsequent change was not made on the reporting side of it. So even though it passed, the failed record did not get overwritten. The failure will be overwritten with the pass. If it is not passed, it will continue showing up as failed. That said, we tried. I mean, this is it is very difficult to put in a PowerPoint presentation on what we have, the explanation of the issue. Imagine this scenario, right? You have a school ID. There are more columns in the table, okay, in our actual report table. There is a school ID, and for that year, the result ID on 30th, you saw, boom, it is failed, right? Expectation, you submitted the data, and then it processes, and it should pass. But to accommodate 915, we had to add another column called submission ID, like who is the LEA that submitted. So the way it operates internally is the following day, when it runs, it says, okay, I have the school ID. There are more columns, I said, right? Like there's a student ID. There's so many things that are there. For that school ID, for that student, for that year, it checks if the integrity is passed or failed, right? And if it is passed, it will try to look on that combination, school, student, and year, and try to update that record. It found previously, so it updated. But we changed the condition to say, consider LEA ID, submitted LEA ID as well. But on 30th, we did not have an LEA ID in the table, submission LEA ID in the table. So it looked for the specific, like let's say LEA ID 2244. It did not find that submission ID. And so it created a new record and said, hey, for 1234 to 2018 for whatever student, it is passed. So this is exactly what you're seeing on your intake 15 report, stating that, hey, I have corrected the data, but still it shows me as fail. So we received the feedback and we started analyzing internally. We didn't want to rush into putting a solution. So our team jumped all over it. Like they actually told me that we can do a quick fix. And then you can go tell ASCUS that we fixed it. But they're like, no, I don't want you to do quick fix. I want you to go through the entire cycle and make sure that everybody is on the same page in our IT team, and also work with school finance on that. So that is the reason why there is a delay. Moving on, as I said, school ID, year and whatnot was our original criteria. We added the submission ID, which that is the reason why it did not find. So it created a new record, and that gave you the false impression that a failure is still a failure, but still internally you felt it as pass. I hope I explained it the way you understood. If you did not, and if there are any questions, I want to take a break and walk you guys through this again. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'll walk. I'm good. Oh, okay.
Does this process somehow explain why we're getting duplicated integrity errors?
Yes, that
It does?
This is the duplicate. The reason why you had the duplicate is the submission ID wasn't considered in the reporting part of it, not at the processing side. Are we on the same page?
Well, there's two issues. The one is I've solved the problem, but it's still showing up as a failure.
Yeah.
And the second one is I've got lots of errors, but not all of them being duplicated on the integrity report. It's not that they remain there, they're there and also duplicated.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Right.
So I'm missing a part clearly.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is when we fix the problem in the reporting table, it should technically take that duplicate record and overwrite with the current status. If it is a failure again, it will overwrite it as failure and you should see only one record. But if it is passed, it will overwrite that with a pass. That is the fix that we are implementing.
When will that be?
My team told me we can rush through last night. I said no. So they're waiting for the quality assurance process to bless them. That's all.
We have like a February 28th deadline.
Uh-huh.
So it'd be nice to know what our true errors are and what are not, because I can spend hours looking at that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Don't look at me like that, Andrew. Probably, definitely before then, I can guarantee you that, because we were this close last night, but I didn't want them to rush because, I'm coming here and I don't want you guys to panic or whatnot, right? It will take a little bit of time, probably, if not this week, 99%. They were that confident last night, like when I left work.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And the point that I'm trying to make is it is a reporting error, not a processing error, right? Yes, sir.
I think that I heard you say that I totally get that it's a rendering error. We get that, and we definitely appreciate the explanation. But I thought I heard you say that it isn't really affecting funding. It isn't affecting kids getting through to the ADM 15. I don't agree with that.
Is it affecting funding?
I have many circumstances where, yes, the kid has a failure, which I believe is false, and he's not getting through the ADM 15. So that is a problem. And just to tack on to that, perhaps even if I'm wrong about that, we just went through a data capture deadline, and getting the data right prior to the data capture deadline is very important. And I think what you're telling us is that you knew about this. As we were contacting your support teams, they were saying, yeah, no one else has reported this. I knew that to be false. That was very bothersome. And what I was asking for is, could you please clarify, get to the bottom of this and put out some sort of a notice? And up until now, you've done very, very well with those notices, but there was nothing about this. And it was at a crucial time. Okay. So I'd like you to learn that lesson from this, that we need to know when you know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that feedback, sir. I really appreciate it. And I want to take it back to my team as well as other program areas within the agency, right? Yes, that is a very important feedback. We will make sure that we will communicate. I think the blogs are, I don't know, red flag is the avenue to report this. I would assume that is the right way to do it. And I will definitely work with school finance on stepping up our game a little bit on that. Okay. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Just to add on to that, the reason we found out that there was a problem in the first place was because our special ed department contacted ESS management. And so I was really surprised that that's the first place we heard it, not school finance and not IT, but ESS management, because our SPED people were saying, I'm solving these problems. What am I supposed to do next?
Okay.
You see?
Okay.
Okay.
I get this. I think we need to refine the practice. That I get it. I think the communication is very, very important at this point, and apologize that we couldn't jump all over it. We definitely know, and also I don't want to throw a false alarm as well, and probably that is exactly where we were. But I understand the sensitivity of the data capture date, and it's very important. Okay. I think while talking, I got another idea like this. A major change like this right before the data capture date is not an advisable method, right? Right. So okay, that's something that I will go take it back to my team. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So you added the column for 915s?
Uh huh.
And 915s are last year data.
Correct.
So I'm missing
That's why I
something.
tried to explain it as non-technical as possible. This is about the way we write data into the reporting file structure. So now another thing that I have a problem here, which is I have to draw. If I draw and walk you through the scenario, I think I can do a better job. But my team did a very good job in creating this slide deck to walk you through the process. But I can take that question offline and maybe draw and explain why this happened. It's basically, it is looking for a combination of data in different columns. And it did not find the submission ID because for the previous day it was null. That's it. And going forward, every time we run the process, irrespective of it is 915 or not, we will have that submission ID stored in that table. Okay? Yes. You mean fix implementation or?
In other words, when should what date I pull my intake 15 and this is the date I should see the fix reflected in that new report? Can you give us a timeline of when?
I would say before end of next week is what I'm
Before the end of next week?
confidently saying. But what I will do is if they do an emergency change, which I'm against but not against in these kinds of circumstances, emergency costs us a lot of time and energy, right? I'm not talking about money or whatnot. Because there are a lot of people, they have to stop whatever they're working on and they have to do their, walk through the steps that they should go through. So I would say by Tuesday is what I'm guessing. Don't yeah. But my team could get really creative in convincing rest of the folks today. I'm not the showstopper there, okay? They said go through the process. If you follow the process of testing and getting the proper sign-ups, then please go ahead is what I directed. Yes, ma'am.
So the only time the LEA sub ID field gets populated with anything other than null is when a 915 is submitted?
Nope. Going forward, every process, every night when it runs, it will start putting that number. So that it's going forward, you will not have this issue, irrespective of whether 915 or daily process. Okay? Anyone?
That's regardless of whether we submit the 915.
Correct. This is an internal thing. I know we contemplated whether to talk about this at this length or at this level of detail. But I thought it's important, it is, you are part of the same thing. I mean, if you understand it from this kind of point of view, then probably it is better for us to communicate going forward. It becomes easy for me to say stuff, right? I'm learning too, right? A very important message that I received today. So I'll take that as a.
Do have one question from the ether. Are you still sending out red flag notifications?
Are you still sending? For this one, we did not apparently, but red flag is not dead. We will definitely employ red flag, and that is something that I'm taking back with me. I have to figure out the best way to keep you in the loop, not wait until ASCUS. This is what I'll move forward with. Anything else? Am I okay on time? Okay, perfect. Moving on. AZ's update from last time. I think these are the questions that were asked last time, last ASCUS meeting. Are there plans to add data specifics to rule failures? This is something that is not new. I think this was asked several times. Like, whenever there is a rule failure, integrity rule failure, we basically give a generic message, I believe, right? The reason why we did not implement what you asked for is there are other items. I mean, the funding situation this fiscal year, right? We didn't get any funding, and whatever. It was like there was back and forth communication with the legislature and the governor's office, and finally we got some money, with which we allocated a portion to maintain the system, to keep it running, and then a chunk to move forward with implementing enhancements on the system. So due to the lack of funding, we could not address it. But we will definitely consider this provided we get funding this year in the fiscal year 19 roadmap. This is something that we have had it on the backlog, because I know this. When I first talked, I think there was this question, or at least someone asked me this question at some point of time. So depends on funding, but whatever detail we can put or refine the rule-based reporting, we will try to implement it. Okay, and I will definitely communicate. The more I know about the funding, the better it would be. The sooner I know about it, the better it would be for us to plan. Okay, and then the next one, STC consider allowing users to submit. Yeah, at some point of time we owned STC. Don't know why. IT, we are data processing. We don't interpret anything. So there is a program area that owns this process, and we're still going back and forth on how to address this. That being said, I'm not trying to deflect the question. Since I do not have a definitive answer, I don't know what to convey. I'm hoping that before next ASCUS, I can get a solid ground on this and convey. And if at all we get before then, we will definitely publish in one of our blogs or something like that. Andrew, right? Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Just so we're all really clear, who is the program area owner of STC?
I know the person's name. I know who he falls under, but I don't know the title of that. I don't remember. I don't want to misstate it, right? Throw someone else's name here. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So we both are on the same page. Andrew is also not sure what area it falls in. Yes, sir.
Hi. So STCC is probably, I would think, one of the more difficult things to get up to the state, and you guys get it on a day-to-day basis because there's constant schedule changes and all that fun stuff. From the data to get into the TIDE for all of the assessments that need to happen for AZ merit and so forth, it seems like they're only pulling it 3 times a year, which is kind of crazy. You guys are getting the data every day. Why couldn't you guys pull that data every night over into the TIDE system so we can confirm that all of the data is correct? When we have everything correct in STCC or through AZs, everything looks good, but then we don't see it completely flow over to TIDE correctly.
good feedback, but I don't know whether the mechanism is established that way to pull from AZ merit. Is that we are like, we are getting data out of SIS directly via the API model, and I don't think that is exactly how it is with the AZ merit stuff. So
So we're told that all of the SCCC data is going over to through AZs, and then Tide pulls it from AZs. 3 separate days.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm saying. Tide is not set up in the way to pull every day like the way we have. Whenever there is a manual intervention, like someone has to submit a file or generate a file and then read. I think that is not a streamlined process like the way we have AZs right now. So. But it's good feedback. I don't want to answer it right now, but can I get back to you on it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it would help everybody else out if it could be done every night.
Okay.
Getting back to all of us on that answer is really important, so maybe it can go through ASCUS.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Getting back just to Ryan is going to help.
Definitely. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is Tide even a state-owned system?
No.
No, I mean, I would only assume that might be the reason why it's unavailable to be pooled every night, because it's not a state-owned system, and it might be based on contract and availability of data.
And contracts can be worked through, but I know we can negotiate on those. But I think technologically, I don't know whether they are at that point. Maybe taking this feedback, maybe they will work on it, or we can enable it for them. Okay. Oh, then I'm still here, right? Will ADE be able to provide report for users to look up high school student cohorts? There is an integrity rule. There is not a report. I mean, there is no report right now. Back burner, there are certain things that we did not do this year, or we didn't even work on it only because of the funding thing. Like there are other priorities. It's a big one. Okay. It's a big one. This is also a big one. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to work with accountability. If it is in SACE, and it should not be that big of a deal to figure out on the partnership on how to do this. Again, like, whenever you see that FY19 roadmap, like last year, it was literally tight for us to get any money to maintain as well as do any kind of enhancements. I mean, I hope everybody understands that. This year is the second year that we are running AZs and all the nightly processing and whatnot. So not an easy ride, but with whatever we got as funding, we're maintaining, and there are some slight enhancements that we could do. Like, I don't want to call 915 as an enhancement. It's something that we should have done. Yes, ma'am.
On your report, in SACE, we could run a report that shows.
ASCUS online here. We gotta have volume.
In SACE, we could run reports that would show what our ADM was before limiting by school.
Mhm.
In EdFi, it's ADM 20, and it's only by your district, and it's the limited report. So it makes it hard to compare to Synergy that we use for our auditors to show that we're dead on. We got a ticket in to school finance. School finance says it's very low on their totem pole. So why, if we had it in SACE, can we not have it with AZs?
It's not throwing anybody under the bus. So I would love to have school finance if they're here. Okay. All right. Is it okay? Can you ask when Lyle or someone from school finance is here? Like last time when I was here, Lyle was saying, "Oh, we are giving IT enough work. I know how to keep them busy." So they have to prioritize certain things. So that we took that feedback. We are going to work with school finance, and like since you opened a ticket with them, I mean, it doesn't. If you can mention it to him, I'm going to take it back. I mean, all this feedback, it will be discussed next week. Okay, as soon as we see them. Anything else? Okay, moving on. On student identity search tool, provide the grade level. It was not planned. Same reason. I mean, I might sound redundant, but like there are priorities that we could accept last year because of the limited amount of funding. Not that we have surplus this year. I'm hoping we get surplus. But things that we possible for FY19 roadmap. Definitely, we are going to take the feedback from these groups or this meetings and whatnot, and we will try to work with school finance and whoever, like there is an accountability thing that you said. We'll work with accountability group to figure out where and when in the next roadmap based on the funding, and then we will try to execute it, and we will convey that message, right? Right now I do not know what they're going to give us. I'll talk about it a little bit when we go further. Next one, moving on. The R20 to that 10099. You can read this answers, right? Those two are going to. First one will impact funding. The other one, will it be re-implemented? Yes. I did not get a timeline on when it will be re-implemented. So I got this information. We'll take this back and communicate. These are questions from last time, right? Someone asked about no summer withdrawal option. Yes.
We can't remember what that rule was, 10116.
I asked the same question, so like they know is what I got. 10099. Okay.
No, 10116.
10116.
So, 10116 states the track submitted for a student's enrollment record must be for the school the student is attending, JTED, private school, public, charter, or the track for the LEA under which the school resides, public, private, or charter.
Is that clear, or are any questions? Okay. Oh, you did a good job. There was a bug that was that was discussed last time, I believe. My team told me that it is completed. Is that true? Is that a correct statement? Or is there something that we are missing? No? Okay, I think it is correct. Nobody's questioning. But they also gave me a date. The message that I got from AZ's team is, oh, it was implemented before December is what they told me. But I thought ASCUS was in what? Was it in December or November? Yeah, so probably there was the communication did not go out or something, but they were very confident when I called them last night. And I said, like, what are you talking about? It was implemented. It's like, okay, then I will get this updated as completed. Moving on, summer withdrawal and R22 codes are failing in that rule. It was fixed and the documentation is provided at the link. So this slide deck will be available for everybody. So if you click on it, probably you'll have every detail about that. So if you can, if there are any questions, please feel free to contact us. Moving on. So another thing that we wanted to let you all know, I'm not going to go through every single detail. These are the planned rule changes or enhancements that we are making for rest of the fiscal year. And this slide deck will be given to everyone. So if there are any questions or if there is any change that you're expecting from us to do, which doesn't fall in this kind of priority, please do let us know. I think there is another slide too on this. I'll wait for a second before I move forward.
Okay, so planned ASES enhancements for this year.
This fiscal year, before until June 30th.
Okay, and some of these will be integrity rule changes.
Yes.
And do you have a deadline for when those will be implemented? Our concern is some of these rules get implemented very, very late in the year. Makes it very, very difficult to deal with. We had asked a year ago that you not implement integrity rules after, say, April 1st.
Okay.
Just makes it very, very difficult for us to deal with if you implement a rule later than that.
Okay. So what I can do is have maybe publish the timeline for each of those implementation, and then if there is an objection on about anything around about the timeline, then maybe we'll work through that. Is that good? And we can publish it. Huh? Can I move on to the next one? I'm not going to ask any questions on that slide, so don't worry. I can move. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about the as a student information SSIS update. The goal was to provide lower cost choice to LEAs, which we achieved. And also, I want to allude to the fact that we had a very good partnership with EduPoint during implementation. I mean, not whenever there is a major system or transformation, it's not easy. There are pain points, and pretty much we worked very closely with every vendor. I mean, Andrew can allude to that. Like, everybody has their own different sets of problems, but we went through the journey. And the reason why I'm talking about that is, EduPoint, the partnership was in such a way that after finishing up the contract with them, like, after we achieved the goals, they are honoring the customers that came through states SIS at the same cost. I think there is this contract called Mojave contract. They're honoring that. And the transition happened very smoothly from our point of view. And they did a remarkable job. And I really want to allude to that. And then the support services has been transferred to EduPoint by January. And the program will be concluded this month. So any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
The state will no longer provide an SIS?
That is correct.
Okay. Sure. I just was asking for clarification that he's saying that the state will no longer provide student information services and that EduPoint will take on all of the state's clients through Mojave. And so there will no longer be a state
Correct.
SIS. And he said, yeah, I understood that right.
For the remainder of the major functionality wise, right? School calendar is getting implemented for next fiscal year, which means tech lingo, the API has been built and it is currently under testing. And we will be opening it up for vendors to start certify. We'll open it for vendor certification. I think it is March timeframe is what we are targeting, and going to APOR and CHAR with the money that we received last year is like this fiscal year. We allocated a small chunk to work on decoding the current APOR and CHAR in conjunction with school finance. And the report, this is from an external party that specializes in school finance related business. They worked with Lyle and a bit with IT as well. And they submitted a report which we are actually using with the legislature and governor's office on trying to get funding so that we can start replacing, what I call, rewriting A4 and char in the same way that we did the replacement of SACE. So hopeful that we will get some funding. The way we are approaching this is instead of wait until July 1st to start decomposing into IT language, we starting April through June 30th, we will do the task breakdown and decomposition of the requirements so that if we get funding, start July 1st, we will assemble a team and start replacing component by, like, I think we'll first do the framework and slowly we'll bolt on top of it. That is the approach that we are taking. And this is the same message that we are giving legislature and governor's office as well. Okay. And then for FY19 roadmap and priorities. So the way we are trying to, a calendar, right? Calendar used to have, you have it in SIS and then you take the same calendar information and enter it into another system at ADE, which our goal is to replace that by directly getting calendar info from student information system. In the same way, we requested for a little bit of budget. I'm sorry, go ahead. You send it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So LEAs also report for private placement schools.
Uh-huh.
So how would you, are you going to pull the calendar from all of the LEAs that report for a single?
Yeah, instead of, it's not pull, you actually submit it to us. From SIS, you don't really, yeah.
But given that there's a whole lot of us that report attendance for a particular private placement school, how would that work? Supposing the unique ID is your LEA, CTDS number, entity ID, and I share the entity ID on reporting for ACEs or the ACEs, and so would any other LEA. How would we? You just gonna keep overwriting the school calendar?
Okay, I have support. I have school finance with me.
If it helps any, I put a school calendar on Lyle's slides.
And therefore, he's gonna answer all our questions about school calendar? He'll answer a number of them. Okay, cool. We'll see what
Okay, go ahead. Hey, I have support. Come on. Yes, sir.
Mine is also about school calendars, and I'm glad Lyle's here too. But my question, and I also already proposed this to Saba and Lyle, we were told that there's only going to be allowed 2 tracks for each site or each CTDS number. Is that still?
It's 8 for every school LEA combination, but for your purposes, because for Westmec,
Yes, you're right.
sorry, for Westmec, since you won't be using the 3-day tracks, you'd be personally limited to 2. But
So it would be actually not just Westmec, it would be JTEDs altogether.
your question is taped to my wall.
Okay. My next question would be for the JTEDs that have their satellites report their own student attendance. Normally, we upload the satellite schools' LEA calendars, so we mirror their calendars. If a JTED is having their school district satellites report on their own, which has happened with Pima and EVIT does it as well, how are they going to get those calendars up if the satellites are not in their SIS anymore? Does that make sense, what I just asked?
Honestly, we built most of the architecture off of your suggestion, but that said, I'm down in the weeds and we'll cover most of it in Lyle's slides, but your questions are really good. And so we'll be calling you in.
Okay,
soon.
so no answers yet is my answer. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Soba. What else? APOR and CHAR. So we talked about APOR and CHAR, and then the third item that we are trying to do is, oh, there is another question, sir? Oh, okay. We are instead of depending on the hardware that we need to replace every 4 or 5 years and maintain it ourselves, governor's office is recommending moving into cloud, which ASCUS is already on. So one of the funding items for FY19 is on the cloud side too. So we're hoping we presented to subcommittees and as well as the main committees on what our ask was, and I have a few more meetings like starting today through end of next week, I guess. And we're hopeful that we get what we ask for so that we can start planning for next year. Yeah. I see that this is the last slide for me. Any questions?
For FY19, we'll be submitting 21st century CCLC data.
Correct.
Is that mandatory for all districts that have that grant?
I don't know the answer. Can I respond like via a blog post or something so that everybody?
Yeah, or just let Saba know and then she can talk about it at School Finance Friday.
Okay. Okay. Saba, we'll let.
Sure, I'll take notes and go ask the question.
Another question? Yeah.
Hi. So last year we all survived AZEDS, woohoo to all of us. And now this year, you know, we as SIS coordinators for our district are looking at data more specifically, better, more intentionally. And I'm finding that SACE had more reports to help me do my job, and AZEDS doesn't. And you've heard them, a couple of them being talked about. You know, the errors from SACE was more specific. It would give us the CTDS number from the school we were having problems with. Mm-hmm. The error that just your generic message is just like, huh? Where the SACE, we actually knew what those error message meant and could drill down without having to search everywhere in the student screens for no matter what it is. So that is extremely difficult. The other thing is concurrency issues. You know, there were concurrency reports that we could run so I could quickly find who I'm concurrent with without having to look through this limiting report it's just phenomenal what we have to do to find our concurrencies. And then the other thing that was brought up was the ADM limiting, that I can't get a report out of AZEDS that gives me my ADM before limiting. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous, because our auditors don't want to know balance after limiting. They want to know our balancing before limiting. So not having these three things is affecting me doing my job in an effective way. So I personally am kind of discouraged with the AZEDS and the reporting. And then I personally feel like between school finance and IT, we get this finger pointing saying, oh, it's not us, it's IT, or it's not IT, it's school finance. And I know you talk about limiting funded, that you are limited funding. Well, so are we. And yet I'm spending hours doing stuff that took me less time with SACE because I don't have the tools that I need that were available in SACE. And so to be told that, oh, we don't think you need that, I'm sorry, I don't think that's fair. And from both departments. So I'm just sharing a little bit of frustration of where I'm at and the amount of hours I'm having to spend to do my job to make sure my district's getting the correct funding. And thank you for listening.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't know what to say, but I'll make an attempt. Okay. No, there is no finger pointing. Probably there is. Okay. Okay. I'm not I just celebrated Saba and Lyle's arrival, so I was happy to see them. Now, you might perceive that it is finger pointing. By the way, I'm not trying to remove your frustration or anything by talking like this, but I'm making an attempt to explain where your perception could be coming from. Okay. There are certain things that school finance is more qualified than anybody in our agency. Same goes with SPED area and whatnot. So when we say we want to, like, you know, I can see myself saying that, I need to ask school finance because they are the experts. Like, you know, for example, in the cloud strategy or how to do technical processing, I would assume that school finance would say, hey, what I expect them to say, talk to IT or something like that. Probably that is what you might be seeing. But if you consistently had this kind of frustration, that is a very, very serious thing. I mean, I can see Lyle and Saba right here. And obviously, this is, it's not about finger pointing. It's more about what you're expecting, which is not available on reporting side. And I have been talking about it throughout my presentation, where last year or this year, the funding was not what we thought we would get. We had to maintain while trying to move forward with ASCUS. And executive budget recommended maintenance funding as baseline, which means we don't have to fight for that money going forward. Let's say we get that and then get development money, then this reporting will be addressed next year. I'm talking about the integrity issues that integrity rule failure. It doesn't give any specifics is what I have been hearing. So maybe that is something that we have to work together on. When I say I have to work with school finance on that, or whichever program area, if it is an accountability thing, it is not school finance who has to give the entire detail. There is some kind of collaboration that I need to bring around the table.
Well, thank you for your explanation, and maybe you can help us. Some of these ideas that I've just mentioned are big ideas, and I'm not the only one. You heard the clapping that all of us are feeling the same thing. There's some pieces that are missing for us to do our job. We've mentioned this with school finance, we've mentioned it with IT, but where do we go as districts to say this is what we need, help us do our job? And I think that's kind of where I'm frustrated, that we keep saying we need these things, and yes, we know you're hearing, and if you can't do it, then tell us, but just, we don't know where we stand on some of these issues.
Okay. I don't want to say
I think what Diane's trying to say for all of us is we'd really like to have some input on the priority of your projects.
Okay.
Some input on it. Get our opinion on, hey, is this more important than this? It isn't that they're not all problems, but some of them are going to be a lot more helpful to the LEAs. And so we would rather you were spending your time and money on those than maybe some other. And having input from us would be helpful, that we know that you're hearing us and that you're hearing what the LEAs need, and that we understand that those needs are expressed by the LEAs. Okay. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, and okay. It has its own I don't want to solution that problem right now, but I'm getting some ideas where how are you, there are a lot of people, and probably there are a lot who are online or could not attend because they have to drive in Phoenix during rush hour, right? So there should be a mechanism that we need to figure out on how to receive feedback and then maybe vote on priority. I don't know. This is how my mind is racing right now. So.
Well, Survey Monkey should go out, to the ASCUS members. There's lots of
kind of simple solutions where you guys list, here's everything we're thinking about. Can you just prioritize them? And you can hear it back from all of us, and we don't have to, have a big meeting or anything like that. That's a quick thing that we can all reply to. There's mailing lists that those could go out to, and you guys could just say, hey, here's what it is. What do you think? And then you guys can do with that data what you do with it, but at least you have it.
Okay. You solutioned it just now, so thank you. Thank you.
I did want to just add something that we as a group have had the opportunity to have focus groups with ADE school finance and to address specific issues that have come up. So that is always an opportunity to get, these are the experts.
Okay.
They know what they want. They know what they need to do their job. So, this is an opportunity that maybe we could look at the, that opportunity to just get a group of experts together, help you with priorities and, getting solutions to the problems that are existing.
Okay. ADE will work together to work with you guys. I mean, no finger pointing, no nothing. Okay, just to take that away, please. Okay. That said, that's my contact information. Any questions that I can take? All right. Thank you very much. Have a very good day and weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you, Satish, for being here and being supportive of us and listening to all of our concerns and issues. It's always very helpful, and we're here to be, help assist you in what our needs are. So
Thank you.
thanks again. And Andrew for being here. Okay, we are going to take our break a little early, so let's come back at 10 o'clock, and we will have Lyle and Saba come up in school finance.
We don't have anybody ADE on the team.
No.
That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
Well, I have a feeling that they're all primed for Lyle right now anyway.
That'll take a little more time. Definitely. Okay, I don't.
Where'd she go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, here's my keys.
Yeah.
It's in my
I got to go
car.
out to your car to get it?
I printed them on big flyers. So hold on.
Why is every USB drive upside down?
For me, I think it's the,
It doesn't matter which way you put it in, it's always upside down.
this one was like a gift going to a thing, and so I think I got it right sourcing.
That one I assume?
I moved everything that you didn't have to look at it.
Remain on that.
I need one of these, the USB, the HDMI one. Because you're gonna get
Oh, for you, for the,
for my laptop.
yeah. Okay. You want the handheld mic?
I have seen laptops that can do this.
Oh, Lyle's doing it. You're not doing it.
I'll be here like I was for speech
Yeah,
therapy.
Lyle moves. Lyle always moves.
Yes. And I was thinking, yeah. Yeah, but we can't touch that. Just show them how to do it. So definitely April.
Ready?
Not a. Diane knows the songs. Which team or which what they're asking for is all medium. This seems like people are not like the limited and unlimited. Yeah, it is on the that's why I said last meeting we need to go and take 15 training. Like maybe not just finance, but one of us or somebody.
Sir.
Oh, God. You know what? If nobody comes up with it,
I will show them how I do it with Excel sheet. Yeah, because it is there. Yeah. And with the board, so, you know, like I was talking, you guys, yes. And, I would always take out the non-limited because I wanted to see what we would. You know, so if nobody's doing it, I will volunteer to show how I do it. Because I have the Excel sheet that I use to reconciling and also for my. I think it's a great idea because I tell you about it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. What you want to do is yeah. So next, if I. Thank you. Yeah. So next time. Yeah. So next April. Yeah, so next April I'll do it. But the thing is, on Excel sheet that I use, I give it to the auditor. He's like, I pull from a lot of different places. So, no, it's very easy. But I'm just saying, I pulled it from a lot of different people. And so, in April, I could. Yeah, because the people are asking for it, I'm like, it's and my because I'm like, I do it all the time. Yes. Yeah, that's what I so basically what I want I don't want to do the whole examination, but I don't know. They are asking for it. To half an hour. Yeah, it will take about half an hour if I go through the whole ADM people, 15 people plus maybe reconciliation. I want them to maybe that is something that where's it's the teachers and probably took off. They did take off. Yeah. Well, maybe we guys here maybe we could. Well, maybe if we follow up on other ideas.
Hello. I wondered if you were going to be down here. You're welcome. Did that help? How are you?
She's going to let me start off. I think she may only jump in when needed. Yes.
Okay, if I could ask everyone to take their seats, we are going to get started again.
Okay. Okay. And then what? Just the. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. So let's give a warm welcome to Lyle Friesen from School Finance.
Good morning. So I was told there was plenty of time for me. So I'm going to take a moment to brag and to say thank you. I've got a son who is 37 years old. He has Down syndrome. He attended Alhambra Elementary School. Susan Cox was his teacher there. She made an impression, otherwise I wouldn't remember her name. She did good with Jeremy. He later went to Alhambra High School, and Linda Sorgel was his teacher. They transferred to Metro Tech, and when Linda Sorgel's class moved back to Alhambra, he stayed there and worked in the cafeteria, and that was his career. So they've all had an impact on my son. So the bragging part is, thank you to Alhambra and Phoenix Union, is that Monday morning, let me back up. My son attends Gompers Habilitation, Adult Job Services, etc., over on Bethany and 59th. He's worked at Hickman's, he's done custodial work, he's done bit work and so forth. But Monday morning, he's going to start at the House of Representatives. Only going to be there for 2 hours, but it's someplace that I'm very familiar with, and he's going to get the coffee ready for those folks and deliver coffee and so forth. So I'm pretty proud of him. So that being said, I do have limited voice today. I've got water. I've had my medication. It is allergies. It's not the flu. But it did knock me out on Wednesday, so we'll see how well I do. So this morning, we're going to give a few school finance updates. We're going to talk about the guidance and the manuals you are all so anxiously wondering about. We're going to talk about House Bill 2078, otherwise called concurrent coursework, the 915 process, and calendars. So this is the account analyst team that Saba leads. Upper left-hand corner is Roxanne, then Monica, then Deborah, Barb. Deb sits outside my office. I don't know where. It's the medication. I got an excuse now. Barb, Julian, and Jeremy, someone we were fortunate enough to steal from one of you folks. And we have 2 vacant positions that we are trying to hire. And if you've ever worked with HR, which I'm sure most of you have, it can be challenging. But they want to emphasize that when you have an issue, make sure these are the folks that you contact at the email address there, sfanalystteam@azs.gov. If you will notice, 2 very capable people are not in this picture because they are no longer with school finance. So while we still see Jim Heck and Kristen Bumford, they are not a part of our group anymore. Workshop Wednesdays are starting up again. This is going to be a scenario where working backwards from the counts on the APOR 55 or the CHAR 55 all the way back to the student detail reports in AZEDS. So they will go over that at Workshop Wednesdays, RSVP at the School Finance and SF Analyst Team email. Melissa?
When we went to AZEDS, at least on the ADMS 45, there's no more SPED information. Is that on a separate report now? Because it used to be regular and then special ed. And now there's only regular.
I'm not sure that was a change with AZEDS.
Okay, well,
but it
having
doesn't-
run it for several years, I know that it was last year that all of a sudden there's no SPED data.
Oh, okay.
So I know that for sure. I don't know if it's because of AZEDS.
Okay, I know that it was rewritten, the 45-1 was rewritten around 2012 or 13, and I was thinking that that's when it had disappeared. It's when it definitely started confusing me more than it had in the past. But let's look at the 45-1, see where the SPED is. So I'm not sure, the lady sitting behind you, Melissa, mentioned some reconciliation. Some of the things she said caught me off guard, but you might talk to Saba, and this may help. The unlimited ADM is definitely in the ADM 15 report, as are several other variations of the ADM. So it's not the most easy report to work with if you don't have some intermediate Excel skills and so forth, but the information is there. This will ultimately help you get to that point. This will be online.
We're doing the first workshop in March, but honestly, the next day, Monica and I intend to record it as a video and post the video.
Another question about what you just said about There's several different columns that address ADM. Can you explain what each of those columns represents? Because there's like several.
Take the mic.
And while it's there on the ADM 15, it's not really accessible as a report to just pull just that number for your auditors to compare to what's in your SIS system. So you basically have to give them the whole report to show that you're not tweaking your numbers.
And we've heard before that a report for auditors would be useful. Realistically, I only look at one column of information in the ADM 15, and that's the limited membership days. And I divide by 40 or 100, depending on whether I am looking at report period 1 only or days 1 through 100. That's the only column I look at for figuring out what's going to be on your ADMS 46-1 or what's going to make it there. The other columns, do you happen to know off the top of your head the name of the column that is unlimited?
We had done a training on the ADM 15 and how to use it and things, but that one we didn't record as a standalone video. I can try to do that one in March.
There's year-end and limited, and I know there's several columns, but I don't know what that.
There are too many columns of ADM there. One column, if I remember correctly, does the same thing that the SD ADMS 75 did, if I remember correctly. Is it useful to you to know what the average daily membership is for days 41 through 100? I mean, I look at 1 through 40 and 1 through 100. I never look at 41 through 100. It's just not useful for me, but I don't work where you do, so. But I think the workshop Wednesdays will be the best place to get some guidance on this. Saba is readily taking notes here.
To the need that we have to respond to an audit every year and how important it is to have reports that the auditors will accept. It's super important. And, you know, if we could work with the auditing people and say, what will you accept? And then get that guidance out to us. Here's the report that they will let us use, because we all have to respond to the same questionnaire. And it doesn't matter who your auditor is, they're using that same questionnaire, and we're happy to provide them that information if we can all agree on a report. It would just make everybody's life so much easier. And that, I would love to see that become a priority.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Saba's got that note, and we'll talk about that and see what we can do.
Just, Lyle, just to tack on to that. So ADM 15 does have absolutely everything you need to satisfy your auditor.
Yes.
But you can only download it in CSV. The moment it's in a spreadsheet, what auditor isn't going to question that, right? So we have to have a very simple report that provides exactly what Melissa was saying, provides exactly what the auditors need, has to be downloadable in PDF so that they're not going to accuse us of monkeying with it. And yeah, that's a really, really high priority. Or better yet, could we just work on the audit requirements?
Different issue.
I think the legislature knew you were going to say that. They've already got a bill to put more local control into what, when, and how long education is. Not really following it too close. It'll happen when it happens, and they don't seem to be interested in my input. So, February memo. What, this week? Okay, so look for the February memo on our school finance website. This is Friday. This coming week, okay. Anybody hear about the charter closing? They had an ADM of 530 sped. SPED of 17 and ELL of 7. Maybe I got the SPED and ELL backwards, but 530 kids that some of you are going to be absorbing. It looks like about 1/4 of those kids have already been absorbed into your schools. So we're hoping that if you have some of those kids that you report those as quickly as possible. We've got, let's see, Buckeye Elementary, Avondale Elementary, Dysart, Washington, a handful of charters. It's spread pretty much across the Western Valley. So do get those into us. There was discussion that there could possibly be some funding to follow these kids. I have not seen a bill yet, but I have been asked a few questions that suggest there will be a bill forthcoming so that there will be some money available if you enroll these kids and the state formula doesn't generate anything because they're enrolling after the 100th day. So that's just an FYI. Website there gives a brief blurb, provides some schools in the neighborhood of Bradley Academy. But these students that I've seen are showing up much farther away than just the 4 or 5 that are listed there. Bob?
You're mentioning Bradley specifically. There was another charter, much, much smaller, that closed, Paragon Academy. You might know them as Tucson Collegiate Prep. 45 some students. So if there's a bill, is the bill specifically for Bradley, or would it include any closed charter?
I think Paragon closed
December 21.
December. How quickly I forget. And that would be much later. Saba, take a note about Paragon and I'll share that. If I remember correctly, the talk was specifically for Bradley, but Paragon might be another one to include. Transportation routes. Time to report your route miles. System is open. It will be open through the end of February. Keep in mind that once you go in, you input your data, you click complete, click submit, say it's finalized and so forth. You may think you're done, but you may also go in and look and not change anything. This is one of 2 systems written by a gentleman whose initials are RM. He's not even in the state anymore. But he wrote it in a manner that if you submit it, you finalize it, you're all good and done, and you go and look at it, you've got to resubmit it again. So anytime you look at it, anytime someone else in your office would go in and look at it that might have access to it, most of this will be the route folks, which may not be too many of you in here, but just be sure that you always click submit after looking. Definitely will impact funding. SDER data modifications. This application was written by the same gentleman. Has the same issues. As of today, we have 40 school districts for which they have not submitted data, or they have not clicked submit, or they have clicked submit and went back and looked at this. We will be communicating with those 40 LEAs directly. I don't know what to tell you to do. If you go in and look, then you have to click submit again. But just be aware of that. This is deadline Monday 3/1. This is the only option. in statute for making changes to SDER is during this time frame. Maybe I didn't miss one. Guidelines, you're all anxiously awaiting EX1. We're waiting for a review by our audit team of a small tweak that we had to make to it. But so it is pending approval. Hopefully this can be finished up very soon so that we can start over when that other crazy law kicks in. But don't have a specific date right at the moment. Similarly, AOI and DRPs are in draft stages, have not been reviewed yet. JTEDs, we've met with those JTEDs. There was a representative group. We offered interviews to each one of them so that we could spend some time with each one and discuss in depth what the specific needs are. We've interviewed all those that accepted, and we've incorporated those as best we can into the current document, which will need to be reviewed with the JTEDs a final time before we work on getting it approved. Did I get that correct? Okay. This is SB 1156, anytime funding, the bill that allows lunch to now be counted, now for high school, now allows recess to be counted, or any other period of time that is academically beneficial to the student. You still do need to have 4 subjects to be a full-time student. Each of those 4 subjects must meet 123 hours. For those other subjects, you must schedule the student during the regular school day. Football games at night don't fit into the regular school day in my understanding, but there could be some unique case that I'm not aware of. And the total time for lunches and non-instructional periods and the 4 or more subjects must total 720 hours. Now, just an FYI, the bill that I mentioned before does the same thing for elementary, and it also wipes out the 123-hour requirement per subject. But that's just an FYI. I've only looked at the bill. I'm not following it. I'm not following it closely, but I'm interested to see how this goes. Interested. I do not have a bill number for that. That's how distantly I am following it.
So Lyle, you just mentioned must be scheduled during the regular school day. So does lunch and these non-instructional periods need to be in the student's schedule?
They should be in your SIS. You wouldn't be reporting these to student teacher course correction for things like lunch, study hall, or anything that is not the traditional academic course.
So as long as we can show that they're in the bell schedule, we're okay audit-wise?
You should be okay audit-wise. I don't know what you're going to come up with for other periods that contribute to the academic success of a student.
If a student's in a study hall, it has to be on their schedule within the bell schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
So study hall, It's specifically provided for. Lunch is specifically provided for. Music, which I think you were already including.
Question was seminary.
Yeah, I heard that one. Does it contribute to the student's academic success? Document it. I mean, that's about the only thing I can offer, is to document it how you believe it contributes. If you are questioning it, if you have a concern about it.
Hang on.
So Lyle, the course has to be in the schedule, right? Lunch, study hall. Does attendance have to be taken?
Attendance only needs to be taken for the 4 subjects or 5 subjects that historically have been, attendance has been taken.
That was yours?
At the beginning of the year, like, we put our lunch in with our 3rd hour. So our 3rd hour is the class plus lunch. It doesn't say lunch on their bell schedule. It just says their 3rd hour, and we lumped it in. So are you telling me now I have to go back and change everybody's schedules? Because this was not announced at the beginning of the year when we did this.
It is in the schedule, just that 3rd period is a little longer than it
Yes,
otherwise.
But it doesn't say lunch anywhere in their bell schedule. It just says 3rd hour is world history. So, but we lumped the lunch in with it.
But the student is scheduled to be someplace for that hour.
Yes.
Hour and a half, whatever the time period is. I think that should be sufficient.
Everybody hear that? Okay.
This is videoed, right?
Yeah, and the slide deck will be up on the ASCUS website too, so.
My question is, if the lunch is in there and a student gets checked out right at lunch, would we mark them absent after the lunch ends? If our checkout, which we give to the auditors, says 12 o'clock, but we didn't mark them absent until 1 o'clock.
Well, if they checked out before lunch and didn't return, everything after they checked out would be absent. If they check out after that time for lunch, then everything after that checkout would be absent, assuming it was one of the 4 or more subjects. Anything else on 1156? Bob?
So the question was formal guidance.
Let me give you an example. I schedule a kid for 4 classes. Each one of those classes is exactly 123 hours, right? That's 492 hours, I believe. And then I decide I really want that kid to be full-time, so I put him in a lunch period that's 2 hours every day. I don't think that's really what you intend. But if you don't provide formal guidance, then I'm following the letter of the law. I just scheduled that kid for 720 hours, I'm good. And I don't want to have a situation where an auditor walks into my campus and says, no, you can't do that. I'd say, okay, why can't I do it? You know, and that's our problem. I think this is a true statement, right? Auditors are not supposed to be policymakers. They are supposed to be sure that you are complying with policy. And if there isn't a clearly written policy, we have problems in audit. And that's been our nightmare in the state of Arizona now for 20 years. So I'm encouraging you to please consider providing absolutely, totally understandable, clear guidance on this issue. and all issues that were audited on.
May I read something from the last section of SB 1156? This act clarifies the calculation of average daily membership for full-time and part-time high school students. You don't want me to call them liars? No, seriously though, I cannot see us writing a policy that says you cannot have 2 lunches or 5 study halls. It would definitely face a challenge from someone, not necessarily anyone here. It might not face a challenge, but to write something like that, there would be a scenario that we would miss, and we'd have to start rewrite again. So the language is written in a way that possibly 2 lunches or 2 study halls could be included.
Okay, so actually you just answered the question, and I appreciate it. So to be clear, you're not planning on issuing formal guidance, and so we interpret the law, and that clause you just read from the law, that's, I get it. I get what you're saying. So let me just put that, I'll put that scenario to you one more time. I put the kid in 4 courses. Each course meets the 123-hour requirement. I put them in a lunch long enough to fulfill 720 hours. As far as you're concerned, because you and I have the same interpretation of the law in this particular point, we're good to go with that.
I won't argue against you. We're good to go.
Thank you, sir.
Before you leave that, can you clarify when these rules will go into effect?
SB 1156 is in effect right now. The anytime hours, study hall, lunch, other academic subjects or periods that benefit the student is in effect this school year. House Bill 2078, concurrent coursework. Anybody in here at least interested? Okay. Well, this allows you to, for high schools, to count instructional time at a community college or at a university, and enrolled time, not attendance time. So if a student enrolls at Phoenix College, 1 credit, a 3-credit class meets roughly 45 hours over the course of the semester. Assuming other requirements are met, that 45 hours goes towards the calculation of that student's ADM. This language requires a different calculation of ADM. For this to be implemented, we need to know how much time your students are enrolled in if you want to take advantage of this. So not only would we need to know that a student is enrolled in 2 subjects or 2 courses at the community college that meet 45 hours each, we will also need to know that the student is also enrolled in your high school for 3 subjects that meet 145 hours per week. So we will need enrolled time for your high school and for their time at the community college. And we will be, we are working on the design for that. Language also requires that for the time at the community college to count in that ADM calculation, the student has to earn credit. So if he gets a D, do they get credit? I haven't looked at that. If they do an F, probably not. But we will providing a mechanism for reporting to us the schedules and the courses and so forth that will be required in order to calculate ADM for students with concurrent coursework being used or applied. Yes.
Will this count only during the school year, or will this count for ADM for the summer as well, for coursework in the summer?
Will this count during the traditional summer months? Probably need to follow up on this, but language in House Bill 2078 requires that the student be enrolled in at least one subject, one course at the high school. At the high school, we don't count summer months, so I'm leaning towards saying probably not. But we don't really have anyone whose instructional calendar lines up with the community college anywhere in the state. They probably start a little later, end a little earlier, so I'm not quite sure how we would do that, but it is something that we would need to look at.
Just one other thing to put in there would be those high schools and other offerings that they have as AOI. They may very well be taking courses through the high school as AOI over the summer, plus be taking something at the local community college. So we need to look at that as well.
Okay, now AOI is specifically provided for, so I could definitely see an AOI student that's enrolled counting the summertime community college. But that could be a unique situation not applicable to many in this room.
Sorry, this one they've already, I don't know what the process is where they write it into a statute somewhere, but this one's 1590107. And one of the requirements is the school district or charter school pays the community college or university for the tuition cost of the concurrent coursework, or reimburses the student for the tuition cost.
It's worth Googling. I Bing, I don't Google. Any other questions? (915s). As I think you heard earlier this morning, we moved the new 915 process into production. And if I understood Satish correctly, the integrity rule, false integrity rule may be related. So I believe he shared that already. But 915 is in production right now. We didn't see a real impact on ADM at a statewide. Looking at an LEA level, it would be challenging for us to know whether many of the changes that we see were anything related to this. It is very common to see changes in any district's ADM of, small fractions even whole and larger numbers. So it's kind of hard for us to tell that, but we do monitor the ADM, the SPED, and the ELL independently on its own. And again, when we are calculating payments, which Shane Liu is working on right at the moment, and then we monitor the changes in your payments so that we will do everything that we can to lessen the pain if there is any of this. And that's just something we do on a regular basis. It's easier to be proactive than reactive, especially on this one with almost 700 LEAs. But we are ready to start accepting 915s. I am not aware of any vendor that is currently ready to go. I am aware that there are some that are currently doing testing to see whether the files they're creating will submit successfully. And if I remember or understood correctly, we've got one vendor, and I don't know which vendor it is, that won't be able to do 915s. You may want to check with your vendor. I don't know which one it is, how many clients this vendor has, or any other information about it. But basically, when you write your letter, you will send what we're referring to as a whitelist to us. That should be generated by your student information system. My assumption is that if it's generated by your student management system, you will have already made the corrections in your SIS. And we will accept your whitelist. We will review it. We will have the opportunity to reject or fail certain line items in that whitelist. Hopefully that won't happen too often. But we will have that ability once we've approved your whitelist. Window will be opened and you can submit your corrections to AZEDS. Integrity will run every night while that window is open. So what you submit in the one morning, you will be able to see the results of the next morning. And integrity for your LEA will be continue to run until the window closes, and hopefully we'll be able to move that new number to payments once that happens. Subconsciously following. Guidance is going to be updated. QRG on AZED's sites describes the format of the file, the whitelist file. Any questions on 915s? Is anybody going to open 915s with lots of ADM? Okay. I was just curious. Does anybody think leaving AZEDS open for everyone for the last couple of weeks or the first couple of weeks after July 1, is that helpful? Okay, as was talked about earlier, we will collect instructional calendars via your SIS submitted in a similar manner to what you're doing with student data. It will be a submission, not a pull. It would be nice if we could pull, and if I said that out loud. No, sometimes it just seems like it would be nice to go grab some information, but that's not our information. It's your choice. But when you submit a calendar, it'll act pretty much the same way as the existing calendar system does. It will include something that I think came up earlier or related to this. If you are submitting data for your students attending a private day school, you will submit a calendar for that private day school. If another district or charter is submitting kids to that same private day school, they will submit their own calendar. Hope is that you can come up with a calendar that matches your school start date, 100th date, and generate a full 100 days of ADM for the students at the private day schools. What I saw I may be mistaken, but it looked like under the old legacy calendar app, it was possible that the first 100 days at private day school, A might start on August 1, but your school doesn't start until August 15th. So you would lose those first 10 days, 2 weeks of ADM for that student. This calendar type will allow you to align the calendar to your calendar and capture the full 100 days. Similarly,
Hang on.
If I have a student that's going to a private day school starting on August 3rd, and our school doesn't start until August 15th, explain that whole thing to me again. It doesn't make sense.
it is my understanding today, unless there is a specific calendar that aligns with your school's calendar, that you would only get ADM or membership days beginning with the student's first day of attendance at that private day school. I would suggest you look at some of your students that are going to private day schools. It is possible that a calendar may have already been set up. Would this work today?
Yeah, because we get yours based off their calendar, not ours. They have different days off than we have in ours. They have different half days than we do in ours. So
I would suggest you look at your ADM for the students at those private day schools. When is the first day of that they get credit for? If you find it's not the case where you're getting a full 100 days, I would be interested in hearing that. I'd also be interested in knowing either way whether you're generating a full 100 or not.
Aren't we submitting for the private day school? We're submitting for them, not for us.
You are submitting for them. So, pardon? You're submitting, does the student start on their first day? Then if you're using their calendar and the student is starting on their first day, okay, that may have been a bad assumption on my part, thinking that I'm going to go back to Gompers. It's close to where I live. I have seen, I don't know how many school districts represented at Gompers when I used to pick my son up there on occasion. Scottsdale, farther, and even farther east and south that the districts send those kids from to Gompers. And I'm assuming the same distance to the west and so forth. So if you're coming from Mesa, you have one kid going to Gompers, you send them, you start them early even though your calendar. Okay.
What you're saying, what you would allow is their school year starts on August 1st. I don't have anybody to place in their school on August 1st. I don't place the kid there till September 25th. And I could just make September 25th the first day of their school in my system so I can get 100 days. I know that's not what you intend.
That is definitely not what
But
is
that's-
intended.
But that's what
but
you're allowing.
It is a possibility. It only worked once.
Okay, so here's the point that I really want to be clear. I believe we're going to continue to try to just mimic the calendar that the ASCUS has or whatever the private school has. But we make mistakes. So, you know, it might be that I think that their Christmas break starts on December 20th and somebody else thinks it starts on the 21st. What we want to be assured of is that if I submit a calendar for the ACES that says the 100th day is going to be January 10th, and someone else submits a calendar that says the 100th day is going to be January 11th, that's not going to be a conflict. Frankly, this system's really no good. I'm sorry. You have to have one solid calendar, period. But with the system you've got, if mine is different than Tempe Union's, am I going to be okay? Yeah.
Or is the calendar going to turn into like student demographics, where if I have the kid, my date is correct. I'm sorry.
Is the calendar issue going to turn into student demographics, where student goes to my school at the beginning of the year, transfers to somebody else, and the next person forgets to check the race box? Then I get a race integrity error on my end, even though my date is correct. Is that what's going to happen with the calendars?
Will not happen. You will assign a track ID to your calendar. Track IDs consist of submitting LEA, entity ID, and the school ID that you want to identify that calendar with. We won't be allowing new calendars after a certain date. So once that's in there, nobody could mistakenly delete your calendar.
Is integrity going to be run against that? In other words, you guys have, here's the Donford's calendar, and Tempe Union has submitted a calendar for Donford's who doesn't match that. Try again, Tempe Union.
I don't know that it will be automated, but I know that our exceptional student services have shared interest in comparing calendars with the actual days of operation of a private day school. Okay, what about JTAD satellites in the calendar? In the EVIT model, where each LEA submits their own, the submitting LEA would identify a track to assign the students at the JTAD satellite to. My assumption is in most, if not all cases, it would be the calendar track ID for the school at which the satellite is located, or with Tempe Union, Tempe High School. So that's how that would be. Westmec, yes? Okay, in the EVIT model, they should be able to, and I'm looking at the boss here to tell me when I should stop talking. So in the EVIT model, they could conceivably have a track ID for Mesa High School, and they could have a track ID for the satellite also. So there would be two different tracks.
So, I won't repeat that only because her question used a different terminology than I would. But generally, before 2016, your calendars were inputted by hand into the LEA calendar application. And now when I look at the back end of that application, I see a database where every track, that's why I'm not going to use the word calendar, but every track is identified by an entity ID, which is either a district or a site, and a number. Let's call it track 2 or track 1, like that. For the EdFi model, though, every track is identified by an LEA, a site, and a number. So there is going to have to be some redesign to the way we handle the entire issue to align with EdFi as closely as we can. The AZEDS team is trying to be careful. That way, every time EdFi updates, they can update easily as well. So they're trying to align as closely as they can. So this is a big change in that, and we all felt it in the first couple of payments, is every track is now identified by an LEA and a school and an ID number. So Andrea was alluding to when she heard me talking at ASBO about this, that we'd be restricting to 8 tracks per site. So let's say I was submitting from Mesa, and I was submitting for Dobson High School. So for Mesa, Dobson High School, there are 8 track numbers available. But if I'm submitting for Mesa and I'm also submitting for the JTED satellite, submitting from Mesa for the JTED satellite, there are 8 tracks available. So for every LEA site pair, there are 8 tracks available. So that's why I'm going to avoid using the word calendar quite the way she did. But it is a new thing, and I am 100% aware we need a lot of guidance on it, and probably with slides and moving pictures and animations, because it's a bit new. And every conversation I have with IT takes about this long as well. So. Essentially, you're going to be aligning every student school association or membership to a track. And verbally in conversation English, you and I both know that that is a track of a calendar, but for EdFi purposes, I'm just going to say track.
Okay. Can I? Currently, high schools have to pick method 1 or 2. How are we going to do that if we're automatically submitting? Do we do that in the manual process? You have to pick method 1 or 2 for recording other things. Yeah.
I don't. Sorry, Melissa's question was about high schools and choosing methods 1 or 2 for attendance. And I'm not sure that there are still methods 1 or 2. I think there's just 1 method for high school attendance. Yep, no, okay. Woo. Woo. Yeah, okay.
And I'm not sure how, should attendance taking be related to calendars? Am I looking for something that's not there? Okay.
We're taking away the manual process. Something is happening there. So all I'm asking is, how do we choose and tell you that? Okay?
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't either. Okay, I do look at the calendar on occasion, usually only when a charter school closes. But literally, that's about the only time I look to see how many days they operated for. But
So if you guys could just clarify that when you're clarifying.
okay.
Clarify it, okay? We don't need to do it today.
I mean, I'm not even sure the auditors would need to know.
Yes.
Well, they need to know, and you can tell them, and hopefully what you told them, they'll verify and will match what's getting submitted to us. So, I mean, they don't get that information from us. They ask you for it, yeah. So they're not getting it from us.
Lyle, can we go back to the private day school again? Okay, now,
Am I correct in saying that they also, up to this point, they hand enter their calendars? Okay. Can we just keep them hand entering their calendars so we're not using 150 different calendars for ACEs? And then we go to the website just like we've done before, download their calendar, put it in our system, and away we go.
So I guess that we had the wrong group of representatives when we met. We had 8 LEAs come in. Where were we? Right now, it is set up as we've discussed. We'll have to do some review and discussion back at the office and get back.
Question back here, Lau.
Hi, Lyle. I'm over here. Sorry, I'm short. I'll stand up for you. Last time we spoke about the calendar, I asked a question about what finance is planning on doing with quicker turnover for when we have to change calendars due to snow days and so on and so forth. And you did promise that you would consider reviewing that process. So my question is, where are we with that? And I know it was a really dry winter and probably nobody thought about it. But on behalf of all of us up north, I need an answer to that question, because when we have a snow day, that's the day before a data capture, it becomes a really serious problem for us. So we need to have a better way to go about it instead of having to download an obsolete PDF document that we have to fill out and then email to finance and hope that somebody sees it that day and makes the change that day. Because otherwise I'm reporting 100% attendance to you. And I'm reporting kids that maybe are now withdrawn, but you're still seeing them because my calendar is not matching and I can't change it in my SIS until you change it in AZs. So what do we do?
If I remember correctly, changing it in your SIS, communicating with SF staff should be all that you need to do. Submit a snow day, a calendar change. So it was discussed, it was considered, and I'm hoping Saba will shake her head, yes, okay. But so we did consider that, and it is built in that we can accept a change for a snow day or a flood day or a mercury spill day. Anything else?
I did have one more potential concern about the private day calendar.
Here we go. Still on day calendar.
I would just think that opened up lots of arguments between different districts too. Like if you're thinking like, if you're setting your own dates for like the ACEs to say, no, I had them for 60 days. You know, if you're able to change your make up your start date for the calendar, then if that kid does leave, go to another district, I would think there would be arguments back and forth over how many days, because you're like, no, I start the calendar on this day. No, I start the calendar on this day, that you're going to be fighting those kinds of things.
Saba is making a note.
This is going to be 10 seconds before you ever.
Okay, so I got an integrity error on a student who came to, enrolled in my district from Chandler. They were in Chandler, they were at ASCUS or something, what doesn't matter, ACES, whatever. and then came to my district, and we immediately placed the student back in the same private day school. So enrolling the kid in my system, I have to use an E-code. It was rejected, and I was told, well, the kid already has an E-code at that private placement, so you need to submit your first enrollment of this student with an R code. So yes, Saba?
Is it 20,005?
Excuse me?
The integrity error
No,
you
it's
got, is it
2018.
No. Sorry, I had something like between 8 and 30 of these kids last year, and the rule is 20,005.
Sure.
I was chasing them pretty aggressively last year, but I will happily take your kids so I can go.
Well, I
discuss
already
with IT about
I
that
already
rule.
went. I already went into my SI and did something ugly and made it work. And I don't think it's a good solution. And I don't want to do it again. So I would love to see you guys help us help you. Help them report this kid.
So being the old guy in the room, I'm just going to add the ancient history here. We had exactly the same problem in SACE. You know, there was an integrity rule that said you can't have more than one E-code on all of that. Way back in the day, Lyle, you'll remember the name Helen Hugo. We took this to Helen. Helen said, yeah, that's ridiculous. We'll just amend the integrity error, which is really all that needs to be done here. It just needs to be a different integrity situation for that private school. Where the problem comes here, we would have to assume that the student's already been in that school and we need to use an R code. And we don't really even know what R code to use because it could have been a W4 followed, so it's just a mess. So it's just an integrity rule change. It should be pretty simple. We'd appreciate it if you look at that.
To my memory, this one was solved over the summer, so I'll go see if they solved it fiscal year specific, but I'll go look.
Okay, so what happens if we get a tuition out kid
Nope.
in
Wait.
You're going for, we all submit different calendars, not a single calendar, but we've got these kids coming in throughout the year, but we only have a certain amount of time to submit calendars. So does that mean my kid that came in last week wouldn't have a calendar? Because we had a new one come in last week, and if we were in this situation, does that mean he would not have a calendar and I would not be able to report the student?
Okay, same as a snow day. So you heard Satish talk about budgetary constraints for our IT department. They're legit. They've got a lot going on, a lot to do.
That's why it would be helpful to have a group that would help identify priorities for LEAs, because it's costing us money while they're saying we don't have money to fix them. Do you see?
No, I understand.
Okay.
I agree. We need a way to prioritize what to fix first. We've got a lot of little things or things that look little that impact a large number of students. Various combinations of priority. But what it really boils down to, we need IT staff that we can keep around, that can actually do the work. So that's where I was going. I know AZEDS is not as popular everywhere or as popular as it is in my own office back at the department. But I think AZEDS is a pretty amazing product. Mark and I never figured we'd be at 100%, but I think we did get pretty close, but there's a lot of little things that are just causing some big problems and some big funding issues, and we just need to be able to get through those. So, you know, if you can see any good in AZEDs, don't hesitate to tell your legislator or someone of importance.
Okay, well, I just had a student that I was sharing with Phoenix Union reported to me as split. So thank you. Yay, the splitting works.
Splitting works. It's slow. Okay. Anything else? So here's who you should contact first. You know, some people call or email and, wow, that's interesting. I got to look at that. And then I don't get done what I need to get done. So if you could start with these teams first when you communicate with us, that would be greatly appreciated because I'll drop what I'm doing sometimes. And that's not good for me. But I don't want to be ignorant of what's going on, and I don't want to ignore what's going on. I do want to know. So if there's nothing else, I'll turn it back over to Annette.
All right. Yes, please give them a round of applause. As always, we thank you for coming to our meetings, sharing your updates, and working with this group. I know, like I said before, they're the experts in the field. You know, we all appreciate all that you do. And hopefully we can work together, maybe on a focus group, to share our interests and our priorities in the field. So just keep that in mind. It's always an open suggestion, open opportunity. So thanks again, Lyle, Saba, for being here. Unless you have other questions, thank you for asking the questions. Some of them are very hard, but you know, at least there's an answer, or if not, it gets taken back and there's follow-up. So we'll be sure to continue to do follow-up with anything that was, you know, not answered today. So again, please send us your suggestions for April 28th. Lunch was scheduled to be served at 11:30, so you can just hang out, network, talk amongst each other, and hopefully have a happy Friday and good rest of the day. So thanks again for being here, and hope to see you April 28th.